It's a total coincidence, I must say, total coincidence. When I first heard about Mike, this French guy that you see on the left, yeah, this French guy that you see on the left, I understood that he obviously has some African roots, as you may guess, but he did not go to sub-Saharan Africa, never. And I was very curious about how you can be an artist, how you can have some roots, you can have an heritage, and at the same time, you can go back to some roots and mix that with a new production of art. First coincidence. Second one, we wanted Shelenge to be part of this adventure. You know Shelenge, this very famous artist. I'm so happy that she's here. And Mike went for residence to Shelenge. And for me, Shelenge has a very strong artistic value in terms of roots, in terms of heritage. And I would have dreamed that Mike work with Shelenge, but Shelenge is so busy. You know this international artist, she's going everywhere. And also we wanted to have someone else, and Arsita thought of Patti. And when I make the connection between the Patti that we all know, in Sandstorm Bag, for example, as a designer, as an artist everywhere in Kenya, this Patti plus Mike, we thought that it was explosive, positively, explosive mixing, and it was really fantastic. So we asked if it was possible to have this topic with, including Joël, about the link between heritage and what you have in the bottom of your heart, when you have in your soul as an artist, and the production of art. And it was very interesting, of course, because as you may know, Patti has two cultures, from Japan and from Kenya. How can we mix Japan and Kenya? It's fantastic, really. How can we mix the French, RDC roots? How can be, for the first time in Kenya, in sub-Saharan Africa? All these things will be explained tonight, and I'm sure it will be a very, very interesting talk this evening. Just a reminder, for your friends who are blocked in the traffic, for everyone who would like to join us live, now we are recorded live, and you can just go to YouTube channel, AF Nairobi, very easy, and you find this live, and it will be recorded also if you want to see it again. But now, I would like to give the floor to my good friend Marine, who is an excellent moderator, and I wish you a very good discussion. I'm sure it will be interesting. After the discussion, we go to the main hall. We'll have the opening of the exhibition, per se, and then we'll have, of course, as usual at Alliance Française, very good French wine and other things. Okay, merci, Marine. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And yeah, and again, as Charles said, don't hesitate to go on the YouTube channel and share the link for people who can't be here tonight or people who want to watch this again afterward. So I'm your host. I'm Marine, and with Christine, who is here in the crowd, we co-founded Liminal Spaces, a platform to bridge a gap between artists and their audience in Kenya, in East Africa, in Africa in general. And we've been very lucky to work with Alliance. I think it's our 5th or 6th, I can't remember, artist forum, to try and bring topics that we love and that we find really interesting, bringing them to you, and having this connection, direct connection with the artist, and giving them a little bit of the floor with their words. Which is not always the case, but it's always such a pleasure. And so today I'm going to first introduce my guests, and I'm very honored to have the three of you on such an important topic. I'm going to start with you, Mike. Navangi, thank you for coming here. I heard this was your second week in Kenya. This is exciting.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
You were a French artist, and You're a painter, an illustrator, and a sculptor. And from what I understand, it's really important for you to explore African culture in your work and to really re-emphasize and re-empower the African culture in your work. And I can't wait to, we'll talk a little bit more about your art later on. But to everyone, for Mike, a round of applause, please. Yeah, I don't give the right of speech right away, because otherwise we never end the introductions. Patti, Endo, we've known each other for a while now. I've actually discovered your work at Corona Artist Collective, and I really love your work. So Patti is a visual artist. As Charles said, Kenyan and Japanese. So I think with this, it was hard for you to not talk about ancestral roots. You have like probably both cultures that are the most linked to ancestors. So I can't wait also to delve a little bit more into this with you. And I invite everyone to come and check your work, which is this incredibly touching and poignant like way of drawing and of keeping this single line, which always takes us on a journey, and that I find very very moving. And hopefully that will bring us to our ancestral roots. I don't know, we'll talk about this. And Joël Lukovi, thank you also for being here tonight. Same, we met a few years ago in your cafe in LM, which we'll talk about later maybe. But mostly you were a photographer. When we met, you were working on a project about family photos and family albums. And so I understand putting a lot of emphasis on the memories and the role of art in the memories. And you are currently co-founding the African Photography Museum. I heard a date of maybe November, and I heard Kijabe Street. So I think everybody can keep those two dates and place in mind. And sorry, so round of applause for Patti and for Joël, please. Right, so today we have, as always, a really profound topic, which is the question around art as a bridge to our ancestral roots. And before starting, I thought that it was important to try and define or have an idea of what each of these words actually mean. Those words are bridge, are ancestral or ancestors, and roots. And so what I'd like to do is to kind of put us all on the same foot, ask each of you what it evokes to you, what it means to you. So Mike, we're going to start with you. What do you think a bridge would mean?
I like the idea of connections, bridge connections between two parts or different parts. Yeah, let's look something like this, yeah.
Cool, thanks. Patti, what do you think of ancestors or ancestral?
Ancestors, I think when I think of that, I think of descendants. I think of our DNA. I think of everything that makes us whole of who we are as a person right now. That's what comes to mind when.
Thank you. Joël, what do you think of roots?
For roots, my idea would be it's a form of anchor, you know? It's a foundation, so it's from the roots that we're able to base this culture onto it, yeah.
Thank you. And so I think during this whole session, as you each explain, thank God you all have definitions that were roughly the same as mine, because otherwise that would have gone very differently. What I would love to explore with you is the role of art, first in this timeline of like the past, the present, and the future. And I think also potentially relating to nationalities and potentially to tribe. These things also could help us understand how you create and where you actually draw your inspiration. And so my first question, and as always, I'm going to ask this question, ask some of you. If anyone else wants to intervene, please feel free. My first question is, in your art, what is the link to your ancestors? Have they actually helped you? Ancestors in also a broad way, I imagine. So you mentioned the DNA, but you mentioned who we are, so that could be a bit broader than just the family. How are your ancestors linked to you and to your art? Patti, do you want to start?
Sure. I think for me, it's more of my medium. So I mean, right now, so my work is mainly very minimal work, which I would say is then very tied to my Japanese side of my culture. However, other than the work that I have exhibited here, the main medium that I work with is Japanese traditional inks. And when I work with that, I feel a sense of oneness when I create with it, a sense of connectivity whilst I create, and I feel like that's one way that I do connect with my ancestry and my culture when it comes to that. So in my medium is how I connect that. Yeah.
Thanks. Joel?
I mean, during COVID time and even post-COVID, I ran across tons of pictures that I got from my grandfather's collection. And from that moment, I was so much interested in understanding what archival photography is, because majority of that work had been destroyed, not intentionally, but with forms of nature, so water, sun. So I developed a body of work around it, whereby I started questioning and exploring the idea of family histories, and how family albums are sort of like an essential sphere of reimagining what histories used to be and what it is right now. So that's how I'd position my kind of work around that. Yeah.
Thanks. And you, Mike?
For me, I remember after my studies, I was looking for a project, and I talk about work about my identity, and I looking for in history. I came across ancient Egypt first, and this stimulated me a lot and give me a lot of inspiration. And yeah, every kingdoms before at the past. So yes, I start by this way. Yeah.
And for each of you, is it something that is present with you? I don't know about a daily basis, but like when you create, is it something that is you're very aware of? Or are your roots ancestral potentially, but are your roots very present in your creative process? Mike?
For me, I'm not very aware at first. I do a lot of research to know some things, and when I create, at this moment, I feel connected with something or someone. Yeah, it's more like this. Yeah.
This connection, the bridge that you were talking about. Joel?
I mean, if you look at photography and its inception and its life, it's pretty much more of like a century older right now. And photography coming into Africa in this context didn't happen. I mean, it happened recently. So you realize that when you come to explore a lot in photography, you realize that there's so much that connects with what is happening right now, because majority of the work that was created right now back then was really not accessible to majority of people compared to what it is right now. So there's always that thing that I keep on learning every time whenever I'm making new photographs or whenever I'm just moving around and I see pictures and then I'm like, oh, this picture really looks great. And then when I go back to my collection of work, I realize, oh, this is also something that I'd been thinking for a very, very long time. So there's always that interplay of that connection. Yeah.
And I think it's a question, unfortunately, we can't really address fully today, but I think there's also very different conceptions of time throughout different cultures, right? I guess the Western culture sees it as very linear. Other cultures see it as more circular, for instance. And in the circular conception, then whether your ancestors are not necessarily far back in your memory, they're with you, and they're, when you recreate, as you say, you rediscover one photography, and it can remind you of something from the past. So that's also, I think it's also a really interesting concept to come out of this linearity. And actually, my next question is kind of linked to this. It's, can you, when you create as an artist, potentially as a human being, can you go beyond your roots and beyond your ancestral roots? And do you think you can free yourself from them? And I'm going to take an example. You know how we say all the greatest artists, even if like it feels when we look at what they're doing, people are wondering, oh, I wonder if they can even draw. And when you look back, actually most people have had a very formal way of learning how to draw, for instance. And the more they had this training, this formation, the more they could free themselves from it. And with the ancestral roots, I wonder if there is something a bit similar. The more aware you are of them and the more comfortable you're with them, the more you can free yourself from them. Is that something that evokes a feeling to you, freeing yourself from this past?
I don't know, I don't feel like it's something, well, on my part, that I feel like I can completely let go of. As an artist, you're always reflecting yourself in your pieces in one way or another. So like for me, my pieces are very intuitive. I don't think that, okay, I'm gonna make these pieces so they look like they're Japanese and Kenyan. It always just ends up looking like that, even if that's not the plan, you know? So I don't think it's something that you can let go of. I feel like it's something that even if you want to maybe take a step back from, it was always going to reflect in the pieces in one way or another. Yeah.
Well, how I see it is any form of art takes a form of evolution, you know? So it's always evolving and changing its shape, its being, it's like it's always growing towards something else that while you're making, you're not anticipating it to be what it is, but you get probably something different than what it was. So that's always the thing with whenever I'm practicing my work, you know, as an artist. Yeah. And also the connection of ancestry is, you know, like right now we are descendants of an ancestry that was way back. So in the next few years, we are going to be ancestors to some other generation that is going to come, and they're going to be practicing something that had grown from what we're doing right now. So I can always look at the idea or the term of evolution. Yeah.
I think I can create a lot of things, not necessarily around my cultures, but I think this is what I want to do. This is this make sense to work on it, and it's like a mission, you know. It's I cannot. I have a lot of things to share with all of this, so I have to focus on it, and maybe later, I don't think so, but work on another thing. But I'm enjoy, and I have to do this. It's like, yeah.
For you, it's how anchored you are brings you to the next thing without necessarily overthinking it. It's kind of, is it something that is obvious to you that leads you somewhere?
Yeah. It's obvious to do this because I know that there is a lot of subjects, very important, very relevant for me and for the world, for all of us. So yeah, I just stay focused on it.
Joel, actually, you said something about being. That was going to be my last question, but since you brought it up, what ancestors do you think you're going to be for, your descendants in 50 years, in 100 years, in 1,000 years? People, you will become an ancestor. And that applies to actually all of us. And what kind of mark do you want to leave for your descendants to take on and either continue a certain type of work or just be inspired by you? What would be the thing that...
I mean, for me, I'd desire to be an ancestor who ignites inspiration, to make work. Yeah. To make work, to make artistic work, or... Yes, just to create work, that's what my desire would be.
Because what? Because of the freedom that they will see you had in creating, or because of the artworks that you've left here and that they can access?
I mean, it could be both, but when you talk about freedom, it's also the freedom of the mind, learning and getting to create with no restrictions, So it cannot really be about the final work, but how are you able to I'm lacking the word, but how are you able to to emit, to bring out ideas through your work, and you're always seeing that whenever you have a body of work you're doing, it's forms of ideas that are coming out of you as an artist, So the inspiration should be wild. It shouldn't be limited to only a few elements.
Patti, Mike, what ancestors would you like to be?
I think very similar to what he said. As long as I'm able to inspire someone, to be very honest, I don't think that far ahead. I'm thinking about the present moment. And in this current moment, as long as I'm able to connect and inspire people, I feel like then my job is done. Because beyond that, to be honest, I don't think I have control over how people will see my work or see me as a person. But at this very moment, if I'm able to have an impact in any way, I feel like then I've done my job. So.
And if you can do it, you'll be true to yourself, and you're confident that this will be inspiring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, I want to... comment je dis? J'ai envie de pouvoir inspirer les jeunes générations de manière à ce qu'elles aient envie d'aller chercher des choses dans leur héritage culturel. J'ai envie en fait de les pousser en fait à aller se documenter, à aller chercher dans l'histoire, dans l'histoire en général, et de se faire un avis personnel, d'avoir un esprit critique. C'est vraiment ça que j'ai envie de véhiculer en fait.
Right, so I'll try and translate that. And so Mike was saying that what he would really want to do as potentially an ancestor would be to inspire people, inspire the younger generations to go and feel a part of a courage to go and dig into their inheritance, even me, their inheritance, their cultural heritage, and to do all the work of documenting and not fearing this aspect of like doing the research and being able to create from that. Do you think that's that?
Yes, exactly that. And I think it's a very beautiful journey, because you discover a lot of things, and it's open your mind, and you just realize that you have a lot of things that can stimulate you, can give you a lot of idea for different situations. So yeah, it's something very important for soi-même, for
oneself.
Yeah.
What did you discover when you did this work of documenting this research?
I think the main things is that I'm. Ah putain, comment je vais dire.
He did not say what you think he said.
It's to discover that I'm someone relevant. I don't know how I can say relevant in this world, you know, as a human being, and yeah, as a black people, I have a rich heritage, and I don't have to have any complex of anything. And yeah, to be more confident, I think. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. That's really beautiful, and I do believe that it will push everyone to document themselves, do the research, be confident and comfortable in their history and what makes their DNA, as you said, Patti. And given what you just said, do you think that the three of you, do you think that art has a sort of role, maybe in society, to bring this window to the past? For you, well, you just mentioned it for you, Mike, but for other people, the people who haven't necessarily done this work, some people can be afraid, some people might not even know that it exists. And do you think it's, for some part, the role of art to provide this windows in the past and showcase it? Patti?
Yeah, no, I definitely believe that art is a great tool to reconnect and connect with our culture at the same time. Also, a great tool for storytelling. It's a great way for people to absorb whatever conversation you want to put out there, even if it's very dark or very, hard to speak about. Art is a way that you can depict and have these conversations without it being so brutal. So I do feel like art is extremely important in that role. Yeah.
And Mike, as you said, I mean, the history, and especially for African people, the history is, and Patti, as you said, very violent in a lot of ways, very violent also for people. And so bringing it can bring this, I may imagine, bring this confidence of like, you belong to somewhere, also somewhere that has been destroyed in the past, and people are, do you think people are rebuilding those roots? Rediscovering it after colonization, of course. Do you think there is a work ongoing of refining those roots and rebuilding them?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I do feel like we're a generation that's definitely tapping into that. We're not scared to have these conversations and speak about it all and depict it in however way we want to speak about it. So I do feel like, yes, we are. Yeah, we definitely are. We aren't forgetting about any of these things, so, yeah.
Joel, yeah, did you want to comment?
I mean, art is also an identifier, and it comes in many forms, and how we're able to connect and tell these stories is mostly through preservation. So we have cultural spaces, art galleries, we have archives, we have museums. These are spaces that are able to preserve the culture for the next generation. So the next generation will be able to learn and understand the art that was being done during this time. So it's always it's a space that is able to preserve, promote, and educate the public on art. Yeah.
And you just talked about the necessity of archiving, and I know you've worked also a lot on archives. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it's being done, well, in Kenya, maybe a bit broader, even on the continent?
Well, I mean, technology is good, but of course it has its own challenges. So during this generation, you're seeing a situation where, I mean, if you pull out your phone, you'll have over 10,000 pictures on your phone, you know. But if you go home, I mean, you ideally can't fill an album with maybe 100 pictures, you know. So one of the things I started looking keenly on was I gave myself a target where I am able to print 100 pictures every month for myself, you know. So from that pool of pictures that I have, I always keep hard copies of pictures. So I look at it as a form of archiving, because in as much as we trust technology, there are just certain ways, mostly in the medium I work, where I really get to understand and absorb photography through prints, and like viewing them on a screen, you know. So it's a form of art that still embodies the old ways of holding it and looking around it. And archiving to me is a really essential kind of activity that I feel we really need to really step up on it, because we are losing a lot of memories and times right now that we are probably never going to have them again. So even when I was going through these bodies of work that my grandfather left, I realized I couldn't recover fully many of the pictures. So I had to just maintain them as they are, but stop the destruction, but just maintain them as they are. Yeah.
And as you said, when you said we need to step up on it, is also at the scale of, again, Kenya and maybe the continent, there needs to be an archival work to be done, right? And I think it's already missing, we're already missing a lot of work from African masters that haven't necessarily been put in the light the way they should have. And I think we're also missing museums. I imagine that would be carried out by governments, by states. We're also missing a lot of funding for the art. So all this archiving that should be done probably by the public space hasn't been done, and as a result has not been feeling people's inspiration, right? Young people's inspiration.
Yeah, I feel the state can do enough, but a majority of the work is for us as individuals, you know. So the albums you have in the house, how can you restore them and put them nicely, you know? How can you try and build this body of work that when the time comes, it's going to be handed over to someone else and they're going to view them. So I feel it's more of like an individual or personal responsibility as opposed to just letting it to the state. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do it yourself. If you want to see it, do it yourself.
Yes.
I'm just going to check the time because I know we have an opening after. We're good. Do you, because, okay, I had a quote that I wanted to share with you all, actually. It's from James Baldwin, who was a very important figure in the civil rights movement in the United States. And what he says is the purpose of art is to lay bare the questions that have been concealed by the answers. And because it's not an easy sentence, I'm going to also say it in French for the French speakers here. Le but de l'art est de mettre à nu les questions qui ont été masquées par les réponses. And so basically what he's saying is that for him, the purpose of art is to strip down all the questions that are, the answers that have been given in the past, in the present, and actually what they're doing, they're more hiding the questions that were there at the origins. And for him, this is the purpose of art. And well, I really like that quote, and I really wanted to know what it evoked to you, because for him, it's kind of like art is in the present and can make those questions resurface and make them really actual without all the weight of the past. This is how I understood it. I'm really curious to know how you guys understood it. And Mike, you have a specific say something about Baldwin.
Yeah, I'm totally agree with this quote. I think art can serve to a lot of things, different things, but this is something very important. Yeah. Est-ce qu'on peut répéter? Can you repeat the question, the quotes in French?
In French?
Yeah.
So in French, le but de l'art est de mettre à nu les questions qui ont été masquées par les réponses.
Yes. Oui. I think art is very important for just show the world in a other way, like another dimension. It's like we are in the world, and a lot of things are high, and art can serve to just show everything or show a part of something. And I think it's very important in society to have art because it's something that can help people to have another vision of different things.
Bring a new dimension, as you said. Yeah, like this. Patti?
I think what I've gotten from that quote is that art evokes introspection. So there's a lot more depth into what there is. It's not just surface level. There's a lot more that can be from, it's not just what you see. There's so much more, and art is definitely something that evokes so much more than just a plain answer that would be for everyone. So that's what I've gotten from that. Yeah.
For me, I get it as art being at play almost every time, so it's always balancing and moving everywhere,
Through the societal, the questions of society, art is a little bit in the middle and moves with
in
those
whatever
questions.
direction, the wind is always moving, so it's always at play,
Before we open the questions to the public, I have one last question. We talked about art almost as a portal to the past. Do you think art is also a portal to the future? Maybe I should start with Joel. I should start with Joel this time.
Do we think art is important for the future?
A portal, or like a window to see the future.
I feel we really can't confine it to like that space. Art is always, it's always building its own future. So I really wouldn't like box it there. I feel it's always growing. So it's always giving us something else. It's always growing or morphing into something else. So it's continuously having its own life, Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with what he said. I do feel like art is also very much a catalyst to that. So you can see the past, you can see the future. I guess we can tap into that because art is ever evolving and we're constantly, life is a constant loop, right? We grow and we change, but we do also go back to the past. So as artists, I think we do have the power to kind of tap into that to a certain extent, but not fully, of course. But I do feel like it's a catalyst to that, yeah.
Yes, the same. I think it's a different bridge. So for the past, for the future, can be very different way. So for sure, for the future, and after it depends of the will of the artist, of her wish. But yeah, it can be everything.
Thank you very much. And so this time the talk was a little bit shorter because of course we have the exhibition opening right after, but still we wanted to keep a little bit of time for questions that you might have. So please, great, we have questions from the beginning. This is amazing, it never happened. I had two questions and we have a mic that is going to come. I've seen you here, and we're going to start here just because it's going to be easier. The lady here, and after I'll ask you to make the mic travel over there. After you can start.
Hi everyone, I have two questions. The first one is for everybody in the panel, and the second will be specifically for you, Mike. The first one is we all know that it's really hard as an African children to stand in front of your parents and say, hey, dad, mom, I want to be an artist. Most of them want you to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. So my question was, how easy was it for you to follow your passion? Do you feel like you were supported by your family? Because I think it's very important to also share those stories of parents that are actually supportive their African children in their creative journey. The second I have for you, Mike, is you come from a country that is absolutely stunning in terms of culture, that has inspired so many, in the fashion industry, the music industry, whatever you name it. It's also a country that is going through a very rough time with what's going on in the Kivu region. In the same way, Marine, you talk about art being a getaway to the future or the past. Do you think, Mike, art should also be a window to what's going on in the present? Or do you think, like, what's going on in the Kivu region, is it something that inspires you in your work? Do you think art should be political or it should remain apolitical? How do you feel about it?
And just before that, Mike, we should say, so you're French and Congolese?
Yes. So yeah, I'm French, but my roots are Congolese. So the first question, it's very interesting. I think for me personally, since I was a kid, I was very comfortable to draw. So it was obvious for me to just go in art school. So my parents pushed me on this direction, and it was not easy every time for sure. But yeah, it was the things that I have to do, So yeah, so for that. And for the second one, I remember you say something about politics. Yes, for sure. I think art have to be politic because I think everybody have to have a fight for something, against someone, or for something, and this is the life. And I think in our world today, there is a lot of things who are, who doesn't work, and we cannot stay like this to do nothing. And I think the minimum for me is to do art, and yeah, try to share something. Yeah, I don't know if I answer to all of the questions, but yeah, welcome.
Joël, Patti, do you want to answer about how your parents were hopefully supportive of your career as an artist, or not?
Mine was very easy. I think it also helps that I'm half Japanese, so I didn't have that push of I have to be a doctor. It was whatever I wanted to do. My parents have always supported me, so I'm very lucky with that. So they pushed me to go for workshops, if anything, whatever I really wanted to do, they would make sure that I went that direction. So I never had any push whatsoever when it came to being an artist. So I'm very grateful for that.
I mean, for me, my parents were so keen on doing the science courses and everything. So eventually I ended up dropping from the School of Engineering to pursue photography and do a literature course. So it wasn't easy, but eventually after some time she was like, oh, so you can make money from art, so it's okay, you can continue doing it. So, but it didn't come out easy. It was a fight, but eventually they were able to respect my decision into pursuing art as a career. Yeah.
You had where's the mic? Oh yeah, that's for the lady here, please. And if other people have questions, please raise your hands.
Hi, I'd hate to sound like the art police, but as Black creators in essentially white man's world, how are you bridging both ancestries, African and Japanese and French? How are you incorporating your African side since you're bridging ancestral roots, or you've neglected one side, or you dealt with what you had at that time. But now, since as grown-ups, we can find our ancestral roots because it's quite important. Or with what you've shown case over there, I didn't see African noses, in the women that you've drawn, apart from the hair. I didn't see myself for Black creators. I'm sorry.
Is this question for me, or is that for... I think for mine would be quite difficult to see that because it is very abstract. So I don't think you're going to see a direct depiction of it. However, I have had lots of conversations with my clients and people who, once we have conversations about where my work comes from, so a lot of the figures and forms, a lot of people do see more of my African side. However, the way it's done is more of my Japanese side. So I think it's a good balance of both. I'm not doing photorealistic imagery, so of course it's not going to be a mirror image of what you may feel is African enough. I think that's also something that I've had an issue with, is people don't feel like my work is African enough. However, what defines African work, right, in a modern era? So, yes.
And for your work, I think what's actually so interesting is how both merge and how it resonates. At least for me, it resonated a lot for anyone who would be looking a little bit introspectively into themselves and trying to understand, like, there's no, as Joel said, there's no boxes.
Exactly. So if you think outside the box, then I think it would be, yeah.
Mike, Joel, do you have ideas about this?
I'm not sure I understand well the question, but it's about the representation of Black people in our... Yes. I'm quite agree with you. I don't think there is a Black side. It's like, for me, I represent Black people in my art, but yeah. What can I say? It's in my characters. So I represent a lot of characters, and for me, it's very important to represent them with characteristic of Black people. So with hairs, for example, locks, or for braids, something, or curl hair. The mouth and the nose very well defined. So yeah, something like this, and yeah, something very inspired by African symbol in different cultures. Yeah, I think this is maybe the Black side of my art. Yeah.
I think what's really interesting with the both of you, what you said, is that it's not necessarily only about the looks, but it can be about the media, it can be about the symbols that you're using, that you can see those roots and that you can see the heritage.
Yeah, completely. For example, in my arts, in my paintings, I try to share a lot of history, a lot of myths, mythology. Inspired by African stories. So yeah, it's not necessarily about the body. Of course, I drew Black bodies, but it can be also another thing.
Where do you draw? Where did you get inspired by this mythology? Is it like from a certain country, from a certain tribe, a certain region?
Mostly for the Yoruba mythology. I'm not from this culture, but I like to see the Africa as one, as like something unit, as a Pan-African. So I try to be inspired by different traditions, different cultures around Africa. In Africa, so it can be at the east, at the west, east-west, north, south. And for the moment, I'm very interested about Yoruba mythology, and different divinity on it.
Do we have other questions? Or Joel, if you want to comment, of course, feel free. No, you're good. Sorry, do we have other questions? Yeah, we have 2 more, and I think those will be the 2 last. So I have this one, sorry, Mr. in white, and then, and then over there, yeah.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to ask questions. I think it will be 1 or 2 max. My name is Eric from an organization called Madare Foundation. We've done a couple of projects, of course, with the French Embassy, and also the Alliance Française on arts and sports. But basically, my concern is about how do we make sure that art, especially photography and the paintings, are being appreciated, especially within the African context. I was going through the works that have been printed, and I saw the large paint going for 1,000 euros, and the small ones going for around 100 euros each. Yeah? I was just asking myself, with the body of work based on the archives that we have as an organization, it's quite a lot, but you can not sell a lot here in our country or in Africa, as compared to maybe in Europe and these other countries. On the positive side, at some point we were able to sell like 3 pieces around, it was 2018, I'll say, to the then British High Commissioner to Kenya. We were able to sell about, it was $1,000 for the 3 pieces of photography. But we've never reached that threshold ever since. So what needs to be done so that art within the African context, and to be specific in Kenya, is appreciated and can be monetized? Thank you so much.
So the question was clear?
Yeah.
Great.
You understand? Yeah, you can. Okay. Well, I think the one way that I definitely tap into that is make sure that my art is accessible to everyone in one way or another, and that's where so I run a brand called Endo Squared, and we make sure that art is accessible to everyone. So if you feel like an original piece is out of reach, there's going to be a print that you can collect as well. So it's collecting art in different shapes and forms that makes it accessible to everyone. And I feel like that's one way to make sure that your work is for everyone, not just for a certain clientele. And there definitely is a market of people who do buy very expensive art. And it's definitely growing, which is great. So there's growth. Yeah.
Joel?
I mean, I see, or I believe that we should all be creating work as artists. If you're able, or if you're in a position to create work, continue making work. But the more you create work, the more you build value of that work. So most of the collectors or the buyers ideally buy the value that is attached to the work. So if it doesn't have any valuable magnitude, I mean, I want to own something that is valuable, so majority will go towards that value, and that's why many of probably our art scene is not really doing well. Is we need to maximize on the value aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, for me it's quite the same than Patti. I think it's like create different arts for different kind of people, just to have some arts very accessible and others for bigger pieces.
Thank you so much. If I may, as a buyer sometimes of art, I'm always more drawn, and I would always put more value to art that actually have roots that I can see or feel. Which means that if I see or feel that the artist digs their inspiration from beyond what is just here and now, that's much more appealing to me. So I don't know if that could circle up with our topic today, but I do find that roots is important in the value of art. We had one last question over there. Yeah.
Sure. Good evening. So I'm mainly interested in the question that was first asked. She talked about if these creatives were allowed or were supported from the word go by their families to maybe do the kind of art that they're doing. So, and when you look at it, this narrative is not new. Even if you look at our government, people don't support the creatives, they don't support creativity. So my question is, how do we change this narrative? How do we get people to support creatives? Yeah.
Thank you. So how to support, well, youth, I imagine, to be more creative, and then I imagine beyond that would be also people to appreciate creativity. Would it be, yeah?
How, as an artist, we support other creative? No.
How, I think in society in general, do you think things can change? I think, to be honest, that a little bit of the answer from before was already answering that, to make art accessible. But yeah, I don't know, there could be other, would it be through education, for instance? Yeah. Is there any idea on this?
Yeah, for me, I really, for example, I really want to work with the child. I will have some project in Paris with a school with a very small child, and I'm very excited to work in this way. I know that there is no lot of money for artists for this kind of work. But I think it's very important to, stimulate young people, and actually it stimulates you a lot too, and yeah, just give some inspirations for youth, because for example for me. I had some people who give me some inspiration in the past, and a guy, an ancient teacher, he gave me the opportunity to come here, for example. So yeah, I think it's very important, yeah, to work in this way.
Inspire, and you can be the patron of someone.
Joel, knowing also that you're creating, you're working on this museum, which is also another way to inspire creatives and disseminate art. Sorry, go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Probably it would be to develop art education programs and also formulate favorable policies that support art and culture for art generally, just to grow, because presently there is a lot of that lacks. So that's why art is really difficult, or not really difficult, but challenging in many aspects.
Right. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we can give a last round of applause for our guests tonight, which were really amazing. Thank you so much. And I've already had a little bit of a sneak peek of the exhibition, but I'm actually really excited to go see more. So I invite all of you to go see the exhibition. As Charles said, enjoy good French wine. Thank you.